9. Protecting dignity while restoring clarity. Why communication stabilizes when people feel safe to remain competent. Many communication breakdowns persist not because clarity is impossible, but because achieving it feels unsafe. Clients may understand what is being asked, what needs to change, or where misalignment exists, yet still struggle to articulate it openly. In global client conversations, this hesitation is rarely about stubbornness or avoidance. It is about dignity. Dignity governs how people protect their professional standing, credibility, and sense of competence. When clarity threatens that standing, communication adapts to preserve it. Understanding this dynamic is essential for restoring alignment without triggering defensiveness or withdrawal. Dignity shapes what can be said. Every professional interaction carries an implicit question: will this exchange make me look capable or exposed? When the answer feels uncertain, people regulate their communication carefully. They soften statements, delay responses, or avoid explicit admission of uncertainty. This regulation is not dishonest. It reflects the reality that professional environments often penalize visible uncertainty more harshly than silent misalignment. Clients protect themselves by choosing language that maintains face, even if it sacrifices precision. When clarity feels like a threat, ambiguity becomes a shield. Why pressure makes dignity fragile? Under pressure, dignity becomes more fragile, not less. High stakes magnify the consequences of error. Multilingual communication increases the risk of misexpression. Cultural norms heighten sensitivity to embarrassment or loss of authority. Together, these factors make exposure feel costly. As a result, clients may resist clarification not because they lack information, but because acknowledging uncertainty feels unsafe. Attempts to force clarity at this stage often backfire, increasing defensiveness and reducing trust. Clarity that threatens dignity does not hold. Even when clarity is achieved through pressure, it rarely lasts. Clients may agree publicly while disengaging privately. They may comply superficially while seeking alternatives later. The clarity appears intact, but alignment remains fragile. This is why some conversations seem to resolve only to unravel again. The issue was not misunderstanding, it was the cost of admitting it. Restoring clarity without exposing competence. Effective professionals learn to restore clarity in ways that protect dignity. They frame alignment as a shared process rather than a correction. They normalize complexity rather than highlighting gaps. They create conversational structures that allow uncertainty to surface without being labeled as failure. This may involve shifting focus from what was missed to what needs to be confirmed. It may involve referencing external complexity rather than individual oversight. It may involve slowing the conversation to allow clarification to emerge naturally. These approaches reduce the emotional risk associated with speaking openly. Cultural variation in dignity management. Dignity is managed differently across cultures. In some environments, competence is demonstrated through decisiveness and visible confidence. In others, it is demonstrated through restraint and respect for hierarchy. What feels like supportive clarification in one context may feel like public exposure in another. Global professionals must navigate these differences carefully. Protecting dignity does not mean avoiding clarity. It means choosing the path that allows clarity to emerge without destabilizing the relationship. Language as a dignity buffer. Language choice plays a critical role in dignity protection. In multilingual settings, clients often worry about being misunderstood, sounding unprofessional, or losing nuance. This makes them more cautious, particularly when discussing uncertainty or disagreement. Professionals who adjust their language to reduce this risk, simplifying structure, avoiding idiomatic phrasing, allowing pauses, create a buffer that makes clarity safer. When language feels forgiving, clients are more willing to engage openly. Creating space for correction without blame. Restoring clarity often requires revisiting assumptions or correcting course. When this is framed as blame, dignity collapses. When it is framed as refinement, dignity remains intact. Effective communication reframes correction as iteration. Instead of highlighting error, it highlights evolving understanding. This allows clients to adjust without feeling diminished. Why dignity preservation prevents escalation. When dignity is protected, escalation becomes unnecessary. Clients feel less need to defend, deflect, or withdraw. Emotional pressure decreases. Communication stabilizes. Trust strengthens quietly. Conversely, when dignity is threatened, even small misunderstandings can escalate into conflict. What is being defended is not the content of the conversation, but the self. From confrontation to containment. Protecting dignity while restoring clarity shifts communication from confrontation to containment. Instead of forcing resolution, professionals contain risk, emotion, and exposure. They guide conversations back to alignment without making the process visible or dramatic. This skill is particularly valuable in high-stakes global environments, where relationships often matter as much as outcomes. The foundation for preventing escalation. This chapter completes the preventive arc of Part 2. Having explored early warning signs, stabilizing meaning, and protecting dignity, the groundwork is now in place for understanding escalation, not as a sudden failure, but as a process that unfolds when these elements are neglected. The chapters that follow move into what happens when pressure continues to rise and miscommunication begins to harden. By the time escalation occurs, dignity has usually already been compromised. Understanding how to protect it is what allows many conversations to remain workable, even when conditions are far from ideal.